All right, so welcome everyone. Glad you could join today. Quick bit of housekeeping before we get started. This WebEx call is being recorded and may be posted on DOE's website or used internally. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not speak during the call. If you do not wish to have your image recorded, please turn off your camera or participate by phone. If you speak during the call or use a video connection, your presumed consent to recording and use of your voice or image. And with that, I will let them get this meeting started, and I hope you have a wonderful time today.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon and good evening or good morning, depending on where you're listening from. I hear we have visitors from around the world. My name is Jay Jones. I work in the Office of Nuclear Energy at the Department of Energy, and I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar on STEM sponsored by my office, and thank you for registering and participating in this event. I've been asked to open up this webinar and introduce our speakers. The first will be the Assistant Secretary of Nuclear Energy, Dr. Rita Baranwal, and she will be followed by Melinda Higgins, who provides support to our office as a tribal STEM advisor, and she'll be talking about the STEM activities. Just a little bit of background on myself at the Department of Energy. One of my roles there, I serve as the tribal liaison for our office, where I lead what's called the Nuclear Energy Tribal Working Group, or the acronym NETWIG. This is a group chartered maybe 5 or 6 years ago, comprised of tribal representatives from federally recognized tribes around the United States. So this working group, along with 2 other working groups at the Department of Energy, we're looking to engage on activities that currently affect or potentially impact tribes, and it also serves as a conduit for communication between the tribes and the Office of Nuclear Energy on activities related to the work that we're doing. Last year, the tribal members from NETWIG actually had authored a tribal STEM white paper that identified gaps for STEM opportunities and priorities, including recommendations increasing STEM in Indian country. So all 3 of the DOE tribal working groups endorsed this white paper, and they agreed on the gaps and potential opportunities that the department will be able to offer to the tribes. The development of this white paper by NETWIG was designed to be a catalyst for further conversations. We submitted this to then Secretary of Energy Rick Perry, and we're hoping to engage the American Indian, Alaska Native STEM professionals, the DOE staff, and the other tribes to increase STEM opportunities and initiatives for American Indians. So ultimately, the goal is to facilitate the development of career opportunities for American Indians, both with who can maybe seek employment at DOE headquarters, at DOE sites, and in their respective tribes. So based on this work that our office is pursuing in STEM, we brought on Melinda Higgins several years ago to assist me in our tribal outreach, and which is now broadened from outside working with tribes for other interested parties such as educators, educational institutions, national labs, private industry, et cetera. So I think we have some representatives from those different groups on this webinar. We've had quite a bit of success in spreading the word and sharing information for these STEM activities, and you'll hear much more about that from Melinda in her presentation. And I'm hoping that what you learn from this webinar will help you both in your real and in your virtual classrooms. So our special guest to open the webinar, as I said, is Dr. Rita Baranwal, the head of the Office of Nuclear Energy. She leads the efforts in our office to promote both the research and development on existing and advanced nuclear technologies to help sustain the existing nuclear fleet that we have in the United States, and also to enhance the global commercial nuclear energy competitiveness. These are some of the priorities that we have in our office. So on a personal note, let me just add that Rita is a great advocate for STEM. She's supported the work that both Melinda and I and other DOE staff are currently doing and have done with respect to the tribes and other groups who have requested our help. So we certainly appreciate her support in these activities. So I think we're ready to get started and hear from Rita to get her insights on this important topic. I'll turn it over to her, and then she'll hand it off to Melinda, who will provide the general overview on the STEM programs initiated by NE and the work we are involved with in these other organizations. So thank you again for your interest in listening to this. And Rita, I will turn the screen over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, very good. So, 9 months of this, and every time it's a surprise. So I'm glad you can hear me okay. I want to welcome all of you, especially our unanticipated STEM educators who over the past 9 months have demonstrated determination and agility while navigating unique ways to instruct youth in STEM. I salute you, and our team salutes you, and we hope that we are able to offer you some new activities today that are going to assist you in your work. Our office, as Jay mentioned, is committed to nuclear energy workforce development, and we know that that begins very early. That's why it's so important to introduce our students to nuclear science at an early age through STEM outreach and engagement. I'd like to focus on what we're doing to inspire and prepare the next generation to realize our vision for the future. STEM education is vitally important to ensure that we have the future generation of researchers and scientists to further advance nuclear energy. We also want to engage with those who are a crucial part of our STEM adjacent workforce, because we do need that diversity of thought in this sector. We in the office have scholarships and internships that help to support students in the post-secondary stage, but we have a concerted effort afoot that engages the earliest stages of the workforce pipeline, the K through 12 students. And we will introduce you to some of these activities today. But before we do that, I just want to go over a little bit of some statistics from our office, in that we have a university program called NEUP, as well as an IUP program. And in those programs, we have produced 94 female IUP scholars. 6 of those have gone on to be subsequent fellows. And of those fellows, 48 out of the 276 are female. Frankly, I think we need to do a better job of getting that percentage up, but we're working on it. STEM education is especially important in our underrepresented populations, and there is a focus of the U.S. government at large and a very specific focus on that here in my office. Integral to the process of ensuring America's safety and security, we must expose, engage, and inspire a future-ready workforce to engage with STEM education and career opportunities. Working with historically underrepresented populations in STEM in and around DOE communities helps address future talent requirements, which is something that proves to be absolutely vital to accomplishing this pursuit. And in order to maintain global competitiveness in science and engineering, we need a diversity of thought, as I mentioned, and perspective to drive innovative solutions. We in the office are committed to enhancing and improving access to STEM education and workforce development opportunities, as well as increasing site-specific engagement. The commitment to the tribal communities and support of tribal youth involves facilitation of a relationship building in order to transform partner collaborations to a STEM ecosystem that can in the future support STEM experiences at all levels. The work is rich, and although not always immediate, it can set the foundation to change tribal communities and advance economic empowerment. But in order to meet our workforce needs of the future, we must interact with underrepresented and underserved populations in STEM fields, familiarize them with cutting-edge research and technology at our DOE labs and sites, and have them actively participate in relevant STEM activities that demonstrate the workforce pipeline. Today, thanks to Melinda and her team, you will experience a small tool that gives a tiny glimpse into one of our national labs. We hope that you will continue to learn more about the amazing things that are happening at our labs. On a personal note, I want to share with you that when I was going on into starting college, I was debating between fashion design and engineering. And when I was given a tour of the material science and engineering department, they showed me the scanning electron microscope. And I fell in love with that machine. And I said, I have to major in whatever will let me use that piece of equipment. And so what Melinda and her team are doing is creating those opportunities, those exposures to options, and letting students have a great palette from which to choose from for their futures. I want to talk a moment for our activity in navigating nuclear. Our partnership with the American Nuclear Society and Discovery Education allows free, online, standards-based K-12 learning resources in nuclear energy for all students. And that's called Navigating Nuclear, Energizing Our World. We work to design and develop curriculum that not only introduces the fundamentals of nuclear science, but engages students in understanding that there are many applications of nuclear energy, something that has a direct and significant impact on their world. And we're going to explore this more in depth with some of the resources that you will see today, including a quick peek into Idaho National Laboratory and their virtual field trip, which is very, very exciting. The elementary resources have launched with a new STEM project starters launching on December 17th, so just this week. And these projects will help you explore the nuclear science of land, sea, and air. In the month of October of 2020, more than 1,600 users interacted with Navigating Nuclear resources for overall estimated student reach of 1.5 million students. We hope that you will join others who are using this curriculum, and if you're a current user, please mark December 17th on your calendar now for new and exciting lessons. So I will now let you work with Melinda, who will show you today how we can use 3D printing to print your own microscope and learn more about STEM and nuclear energy. Thank you very much for tuning in today.
Thank you so much, Rita, and thank you for being on today. Jay, thank you for the introduction. And Patrick, if you can bring up our slides, we'll start there. So again, welcome to all of you. We are just thrilled to talk to you a little bit about some of the STEM activities and actually try to do them with you on camera. So I'm Melinda Higgins. I am, as Jay said, support the Office of Nuclear Energy as the Tribal STEM Advisor, and I'm a former teacher of 22 years, and so I absolutely love teaching, and so this is a great opportunity to go through and hopefully for those of you that are educators or are working in STEM education with students in your home or communities or students in classrooms, we hope that today we can give you some hands-on activities, some demonstrations, and kind of show you how to do that. In lieu of being able to be with you in person for educator professional development, we are with you online because we feel it's so important to continue these activities and keep the momentum going. So as we start, I want you to kind of take a look at that first slide that Patrick has up. And there's a beautiful image there, and that is actually called Cherenkov radiation. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the Idaho National Lab virtual field trip. So you'll learn a little bit more about that radiation. So wonderful to be here, and thank you all. Patrick, next slide. So as you heard from Rita, our goals and objectives are really to help to work to engage youth and communities in nuclear energy education and really help with nuclear energy literacy, STEM literacy for students. And so we want to try to improve access to the STEM education and workforce opportunities for all youth, and working really with a direct link to sites. And so making sure that we are engaging in site-specific activities. We also collaborate, our office, with the other 3 tribal working groups that you heard Jay talk about, and really hoping to increase STEM opportunities for youth and workforce in Indian country. And as you heard Rita mention, the NEOP and the IUP, we really support students from all sectors now. So from kindergarten through 12 with the Navigating Nuclear, we also have internships, fellowships, and scholarships. And so we're helping to move students through that line. Please follow us at @GovNuclear, the Twitter handle on the bottom of this slide. There's always an amazing opportunities and keeps up with what's going on in our office. And so that's a great Twitter handle to follow. Real quick, I also want to tell you these slides, on top of this being recorded, these slides will be available to you. And so all of the links and so forth that are in the slides, you'll be able to have. Also, if you have questions as we go along, I'll be working to look at those questions in the chat, so please feel free. I'll try to answer those at the end, but if something comes up and you want to go ahead and put it in the chat, go right ahead and do that. Patrick, next slide, please. So as you heard Rita mention, these Navigating Nuclear STEM resources have been such an amazing opportunity to partner with the American Nuclear Society and Discovery Education. And we started that partnership with the high school resources last year. And there are digital lesson plans, STEM project starters, and the virtual field trip of Idaho National Laboratory that you'll see just a quick glimpse of that. Hopefully you'll go back and view the entire thing. And there's also elementary school resources. So we just started the rollout of those resources. There are 2 lessons that you'll see in a little bit, but those 2 lessons are for elementary. And as Rita mentioned, this week we hope to roll out 3 more project starters. So very excited about having that elementary part of that curriculum. There are also middle school resources that are available. And so please, again, those links will take you directly to all of those. You can also go to navigatingnuclear.com. Next slide, Patrick. So as we said, we want to give you a little bit of a glimpse of this virtual field trip. We are going to, we're going to switch computers to do this. And so I am going to share and show this to you off of my computer. So everybody, just a little patience. There we go. Is it showing, Patrick?
Not yet. Have you clicked share?
I did. So I'll try that again.
Here it comes.
There we go. Okay. And adjust your volume. Sometimes I'll give you a quick warning. Sometimes this volume comes up a little bit loud. And so if you'll just be really careful, we have it set where we hope it's appropriate, but check it for yourself. Okay, here we go.
Hi guys, my name is Morgan. And I'm Amir. And we would like to warmly welcome you to the U.S. Department of Energy's Idaho National Laboratory. You guys, this place is so cool. It is literally filled to the brim with amazing nuclear research facilities. The most diverse and capable in the world.
We are really excited to be here and to bring you along as we explore places most people never get to see.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be able to get hands-on with some amazing nuclear scientists.
Step inside a nuclear reactor.
Oh, yeah, and peek into what powers the new Mars rover.
Do a little glass blowing.
Yeah, maybe a little glass blowing.
And share everything we learn with you guys along the way.
New technologies, new innovations.
New capabilities, and a glimpse into what the future may have to offer.
So we'd like to invite you guys to join us using the hashtag #NuclearReimaginedDX.
So grab on because this is going to be epic.
Welcome to our virtual field trip. Energy. Our lives depend on it in ways that would have been unimaginable to people living even 100 years ago. We're so accustomed to energy just being there, on demand whenever we need it, that it's easy to assume that the supply is limitless.
It isn't. By the year 2100, the world's population will likely reach 10 billion people, requiring more and more energy every year to keep up with demand.
Exactly. And along with energy from solar and wind, nuclear power will need to play a major role in the clean energy future of our planet.
Nuclear science is about so much more than making electricity. Today, research and innovation are driving advances in nuclear capabilities that will transform the way we travel, treat disease, protect crops, study the past, and even explore the universe.
Absolutely. It's a vast field of exciting possibilities, and not only in science, but in a host of other surprising disciplines too.
And that's why we come here, to explore the latest developments in nuclear science and to glimpse technologies on the horizon that may just transform our collective future.
INL is the leading nuclear research facility in the country. So today, we thought it'd be fun to check out some of the incredible people and infrastructure that make INL the perfect place to study nuclear science.
Right, but get ready because this place is big. Really big. INL covers 890 square miles of the eastern Idaho desert. That's almost as big as the entire state of Rhode Island.
Which is crazy. So we're definitely going to need to divide and conquer if we want to show you guys even a fraction
Idaho National Laboratory is located on ancestral lands of the Shoshone and Bannock peoples, who originally inhabited lands in this area and into lands known today as California, Idaho, Nevada, Utah, Montana, and Wyoming before state boundary lines were created.
Today, Idaho is home to 6,000 plus Shoshone Bannock peoples who contribute to the local economy and rich culture of the region. Okay, guys, so right now I am on my way to the Advanced Test Reactor, or ATR, which is the most powerful research reactor in the world. So, of course, scientists come from all over to test new innovations in nuclear science and to see how they perform inside a working reactor, and we get to see how it all works.
So you've seen just a small glimpse of that virtual field trip. We hope that you go back and look at the other few minutes of it. It's 23 minutes long. It's very, very cool. So Patrick, can you bring up our slides? Perfect. Next slide, please. And there's the link for you. We also, just kind of going back, don't worry about switching the slides back, but we had view parties for these virtual field trips. And so we hope with the launch of the elementary virtual field trip coming up that we can maybe be with you for a virtual launch, whether that is in person or over video. So very exciting. There is an educator guide that accompanies these virtual field trips. And as I noted, I asked you to kind of notice the image that was on my very first slide, Cherenkov radiation. So that is something that we talk about in the educator guide and we have students work with. And what causes that? And why is it blue? And is it from the water? What is it from? And so what an interesting thing to learn about light and about light energy. And we're kind of on a theme with light today. As we talk about the microscopes and we do some of the activities, light is going to be very integral to that, and that's kind of one of the energies we're going to talk about. So I thought that would be kind of interesting to point out to you the Cherenkov radiation. Another educator guide activity, and there's so many in there. Students can learn about careers, which is really, really cool. One of my favorite parts of the INL virtual field trip is looking at what a glass blower. So there is a glass blower at INL without whom many of the experiments in the test reactor would not be, they wouldn't be able to do them. He is such an integral part of that. So when we think about nuclear energy, we think about engineers and scientists, and absolutely we need all of them, but there's also, and Rita mentioned, those STEM adjacent opportunities. And so this is definitely a way for an artist to be a part of the nuclear team at Idaho National Laboratory. So as we think about what powers, when we talk about nuclear energy, we talk about fission and fusion. And so really with uranium is our fission reaction that powers, and that happens because a neutron, and you can learn about neutrons in the atoms activity, kind of the fundamentals of nuclear science from all three of the resources. So a neutron actually comes in contact with a uranium atom, and that causes it to split. That makes it unstable. And so when it splits into two smaller elements, but it also gives off 3 more neutrons. And those neutrons then go to connect with other uranium atoms, and that splits. And so that learning and understanding that reaction, how that reaction is controlled, right? How you can get the power that you need, how that reaction works with different materials is all part of this nuclear science and technology. There's one activity on there that talks about chain reactions. So just helping students understand what is a chain reaction. And so one way that I thought would be fun to do this, and you'll see an activity in there that's very cool. It talks about, you know, when you have students in a room together, using ping pong balls or pieces of paper, and each student holds 3 of them. This is how I used to teach it in the classroom. And when you're hit with a piece of paper, you give off your 3 neutrons, and that goes on. And it's interesting to see when that doesn't happen. Is all of the fuel or all of the uranium used up? Maybe with someone standing too far away, does distance make it Does that have anything to do with it? Critical mass. So there's all of these things that come into play when you do this reaction. And so trying to do this for you all that are working in distance learning, and one of the ways you could do this is have your students come up with a way to show their own chain reactions. And so just to give you a little glimpse of that, I'm here at my home and I don't have my outreach materials with me. And so I was looking for things around this house that I could do to show a chain reaction. And actually, I'm using my son's Xbox cases to do that. And so Patrick, if you could play really quickly that chain reaction video. And so I don't know if the sound is coming, but I can talk over it, which is fine. So you have a neutron come in, so there's energy that has to collide with that first uranium. And then as you can see, that hits all the other boxes. Some of them are still standing, some of them are on the ground. So have students in an open-ended way to think about a chain reaction and maybe take a little video or explain to you what materials would they use? Why would they use them? Do they need to be a specific shape? Do they need to be a specific distance apart? And just kind of thinking about how they can show you a chain reaction in an open-ended way and answer some of their own questions about the chemistry and physics of that. Perfect. Patrick, next slide, please. So we want to talk for just a minute about thinking and having students start to think in a more global manner. And so one of the lessons that we have available in the high school resources of navigating nuclear is called Making Mosquitoes Sit. And actually the SIT stands for Sterile Insect Technique. And so Aedes mosquitoes, and females are the only ones that bite, but they transmit a lot of diseases, we know, and Zika is one of them along with others. And so how is nuclear science being used to help with that problem, with that global problem of mosquito-carrying, mosquito-borne illnesses? And so this is really interesting. It tells you how nuclear is used for that. And you can also connect with international agencies. So the IAEA has a lot of science and videos, and that's the one that you see on the bottom there. Nuclear Technique Helps Fight Mosquito-Borne Illness. And they tell you more exactly about what this technique is and how nuclear science is being used to for things on a global scale in terms of health. Another way to kind of use that, and I put these two other examples on the right for you to consider. So they have these sterilized male mosquitoes, and they need to be able to deliver them in areas where there's a large population of mosquitoes. And they have to be able to compete with those male mosquitoes that also have not been irradiated and sterile. And so how do you deliver them there? And this article actually talks about using a drone. And so having your students think about, wow, can you just take a drone over and dump them out? Does that work? Why do you need to be more careful with that? And how could you do that? And you actually see they walk down a ramp. There's kind of a ramp for them rather than just letting them out. So that's kind of a cool twist on that. And then also connecting with NASA's citizen science. Don't know if you're familiar with citizen science, but this is sponsored by Globe, and it's called Mosquito Habitat Mapper, and it helps everyone be a scientist. So citizen science, there's an app that you can put on a device, on your phone or on a tablet, and you can actually track mosquitoes and habitats in your area, and you put that data in with data from people all over the world to kind of map where mosquitoes are and where you might be able to mitigate that. So just kind of giving students an opportunity to see nuclear science and the things that they study and how that, has a global implication for whatever they're studying. It's not just here. So thank you. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about the elementary education resources, and these are fantastic. I kind of just did a screen grab for you so you can see the page that you will land on navigatingnuclear.com. up where it says classroom resources, which is highlighted in green, you can pull down and get any of those resources, but certainly the elementary school resources. Next slide. Two of the lessons that are already out there for elementary that launched in the fall, one is called Amazing Atoms, where elementary students will learn the fundamentals of nuclear science by learning about atomic structure. And so kind of understanding, you know, what makes an atom and how is that different from other atoms and those subatomic particles. So just the very beginning of learning about that. As well as exploring energy. So students will, you know, look at applications, kind of how energy, different forms of energy can be used, and they'll learn about fossil, wind, and nuclear power through simulations and images and seeing how those can work together. Next slide. So we want to start here to talk about what we call our nuclear energy and microscope activity. And you will see a link in the slide that you can click on that will take you to our page for this activity. But I want to go through this and talk for just a little bit about how this activity works, what the microscope is used for, kind of the basic science, and talking to you about the basic science and what's going on, and STEM integration, which is very, very important, and thinking about this essential question. So really going to this activity, how can we view things in our world in a different way? Okay, next slide. So I want to show you for just a moment the video of the inventor of the smartphone microscope. Her name is Rebecca Erickson, and we've already mentioned Idaho National Laboratory. And so one of our 17 national labs is also called Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and it's in Washington State. And Rebecca is a scientist, an engineer, and an inventor. And I want you to watch a really quick clip about her and her lab. So, Patrick, if you'll enable screen sharing. One moment. Okay, I think we're up.
My name is Rebecca Erickson. I am a senior staff scientist at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. I try to solve problems that are concerns for safety or the health of all the citizens in our country. I grew up in a small little town in Colorado. You knew everyone, but there weren't a lot of opportunities in that town. In middle school, I was a shy nerd. I really enjoyed getting my hands dirty, going and playing in the river. My dad was really inspirational. As soon as he realized that I was very interested in science and astronomy, he would, tell me little stories or call me and show me little things if we were out on a hike. A lot of what we do at the Department of Energy involves developing new technology. One example of that is the little cell phone microscope that I helped develop. And that was really engineered as a solution for determining if a white powder that falls out of an envelope is anthrax, which can harm humans, or is something simple like baby powder or chocolate. We print out the plastic housing using a 3D printer. The lens that we're using in there magnifies whatever you put in front of it by 100 to 500 times. And it literally just flips over your cell phone, and you can use your app that you normally take pictures with, and you can see amazing things. We really need a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, different life experiences, all to be able to work together on a team. That's when the real solutions actually happen. lot of times people will tell you that you can't do what you're trying to do, that it's not possible. Maybe that's because you're a girl. Maybe it's because they don't believe that you have the skills that you do have. But don't let that stop you from trying.
Okay, Patrick's trying to stop sharing here. Okay, I hope you can hear me. I'm just gonna keep talking. It looks like my computer has frozen. And so, Patrick, if there's any way that you can pull down the screen share and put the slides back up.
You stopped sharing, so you should be good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now I'm just frozen, so I'll continue to talk through it. So I want to talk to you, first of all, about Rebecca and the work that she does. It's just amazing. And the lesson that you'll see, there is another another link that takes you to her talking very recently about 3D technologies and how she's working with 3D printing in order to help national security, to keep America safe. And so I would urge you to look at that video. It's very recent and very cool. So these microscopes that they invented, right, and really invented them to try to help first responders respond to bio threats unseen, and can be used for, and this is amazing, right? Because this is a small little, I'm going to show you one, and it's this tiny little device. It is 3D printed, the housing of it. The black housing is 3D printed, and there is a small glass bead in the middle of that. And so this is actually STEM integration. So the science of that, so let's walk through our STEM. How is this all just STEM integration? The science of that is that you can study many different things. You can look at botany. You can look at crystal structures, all of those things. If you're thinking about physics, so we talked about the smartphone microscope, how it's integrated STEM, and then really kind of talking about light energy. So this is a great opportunity to talk to your students about light, right? And when light hits things, how does it do that? How is that different? How does it change things? And so one of the ways I like to talk about reflection and refraction, so just kind of talking about lenses and reflection and refraction, is the small glass bead that's in the microscope. It's kind of like this, on a much smaller scale, right? But when you're talking to students, you can show them just a glass bead and say, it is a converging lens if the lens is fatter in the middle and thinner on the sides. It's a diverging lens if it's thinner in the middle and fatter on the sides. And so when you have a converging lens, which is what you have in your microscope, then that makes things larger, right? And so how does light bend around that? And there's a lot of actually optics and physics on the high school level, and we can do one maybe just on high school next time to talk about how that works. And so the optics of just the single lens microscope and how it works is really, really interesting. So reflection, a lot of times when we think about reflection, and one of the promises of this webinar was to use those things that you may have around the house or that you could use with students that you might be responsible for who aren't necessarily your school students. So, your family, your community members. And so as you think about reflection, one of the ways I like to show this is just using like a hand mirror, and you can shine a light on this. It works a little bit better if you shine one of they're not really lasers, but they're laser planar-esque. You can get these really, really cheaply. Always, of course, follow safety and never, ever shine that in anyone's eyes or where they can harm. But looking at a laser pointer and pointing that at just a hand mirror and looking at that reflective angle, right? Another really cool thing to do is to point that laser pointer at the mirror and watch the reflection. Look at the angle of the reflection on the ceiling. And so light reflects, okay, so that angle of incidence should be the same as the angle of reflection. So those angles should be the same. But also we talk about refraction. And so what is that? What does refraction mean? And I bet almost everyone in here knows refraction from actually doing it, which is kind of exciting. As a kid, when you're playing in a puddle or in the bathtub or, you know, anytime in a pool of water, I'm sure a lot of you have taken something like a toy or even your arm and put it underwater and looked at that, and it's like, that's so weird. It looks bent, right? And so I have a little glass here that has a red straw, just so you can kind of see the red. And of course, the straw's straight, but what does that look like once we pour water in it? And when you pour water, you can look at that now and be like, oh my gosh, that looks bent. Why does it look bent? And the reason that it looks bent is because light refracts. It reflects and it refracts. And refracts just means that light moves at different speeds. It moves at one speed in the air. It moves at another speed going through the glass, but it also moves in a different speed in water. And so this goes back to the Cherenkov radiation, the picture that I showed you at the very beginning, and that actually has to do with light moving at different speeds. And so something as complicated and abstract as Cherenkov radiation, you can teach your students and talk to them just by using just a straw and water and talking about the speeds. Another thing that you could do with this, which is really fun, you can use plain water, but you can also have students make a solution of sugar water. So dissolve as much sugar as you can in it. You can look at oil, right? You could put oil in there. Does that look different? So all of those different things are, you know, just a great opportunity to have students understand, like, light moves at different speeds through different substances, but they can investigate that on their own at home by looking how light moves through. I see a quick question, and I want to answer this while I'm on it because I meant to say this. Yes, these are aligned. Chris, thank you so much for your question. These activities, and you'll see the specific alignment in the activity when you download it. Again, it's on the DOE site, and we'll send you the link for that, but they are NGSS aligned, and so that you're covering a lot of things for teachers in that, so fantastic. So we've talked about reflection, we've talked about refraction, and we've talked about lenses. All of this now, okay, as we talk, and there's even more to go with that, but we're at a time limit now because of my technology. So I want to show you, and I think you didn't see before, it's how this microscope works. And so you open your camera, and I like to show it on the front-facing camera first. We know there's a better resolution on the back camera, but the front-facing, and you can see you have to move. You line up the little glass beads. You line it up with the camera, and you do have to move it around a little bit. You want that white circle to be right in the middle, and so I'm kind of lining it up right in the middle there. And then I like to look at, one of the first things I like to look at is salt on a piece of tape, because everyone knows what salt looks like, right? And so when you put it on there, and you do have to hold it right up next to the lens, and I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'm going to try it on the tablet, and I'll also try it on the computer. So you hold it right up there, and you're able to see it. Those students that might have tablets, better access to a tablet than to a phone, same, you're going to line it up until you get the white circle, and then you will hold it right in front. I'm hoping that you can, I think you guys can see that a little bit. So do you see those crystals? So cool, right? And students come up with the most amazing things to look at. So, you know, we have leaves from outside. This is the part where we talk about, like, really what is relevant to your students. So culturally relevant means students looking at things that are around them, that are in their communities, that make sense to them. And so, you know, here are, you know, pine needles, so those are really cool to look at. I've got a piece of a flower here. So there's all kinds of things, and I'll show you in just a little bit what money. I do want to tell this. This is always such a favorite, paper money, and you can hold it up. There's so many little things that can be found on paper money that you would have never known about. I will try really quickly to put this on my computer so that you can see kind of how you could do this, how students could share. So line up your white circles, and then look. So see, isn't that cool? So students can actually directly share live things that are important to them and that are relevant to them. And so, again, all of you that are participating, you are, I'll be in touch with you to see if you're one of the ones that win the prize, but there's also the open source and where you can get the beads too. So Patrick, if we can go back to our slides, that would be perfect. And so we'll go to the next slide. You'll see where it says download the free open source 3D files. So how does this relate to nuclear energy? Well, it's very interesting what's happening in nuclear energy and 3D printing and additive manufacturing. And so we've already mentioned 2 of our 17 national laboratories, but now we're going to mention another one. So Oak Ridge National Laboratory has successfully printed a 3D part for this new advanced reactor, right? So this hardware, which is really cool. I've put a link in there so that you can read more about this 3D printing. Now, the 3D printing is exactly the same 3D printing as this, on a different scale, right? And with different materials, clearly, but still the technology of that remains the same. Next slide, please. And so one other national laboratory that we want to mention is Argonne National Laboratory. And they're actually using 3D printing to find a way, a pathway to recycle up to 97% of used fuel. And so this is amazing, right, that you have now this 3D printing and nuclear fuel along with the hardware. Next slide. So I wanted to just show you some of the pictures that have been taken with this microscope. And I have a wonderful colleague in Alaska who goes all over Alaska, and she has sent us some of the most beautiful pictures. This is whalebone using the smartphone microscope. So again, things that are important to students, and what would be really cool is to get students in Alaska looking at things from people in other areas and in other regions and seeing, you know, how those things are different. Next slide. We did just partner with STEM Santa Fe, a nonprofit, and we presented at their conference. And so cool, their director came up with a photo contest for the students. And so the students were taking pictures. And I mean, I have to tell you, all the pictures that I take or things to put on the microscope are never, ever as cool as the things that the students come up with. And so Janelle came up with yeast, and she thought that they wrote a little description of why they wanted to look at that and why that was important. And she wrote about yeast was a living thing, and she thought that was really cool. And then Lila did the snowflake on the right, which is just beautiful, and how she did that as well. And because clearly that's, you know, there was snow there in Santa Fe that day that she was able to look at. So again, culturally relevant. These are things that are in their cultures that are important to them. Next slide, please. I want to give a little shout out to our Office of Public Affairs has STEM Rising at the U.S. Department of Energy, and STEM Rising is it's all of the STEM resources across the DOE complex. And so please visit energy.gov/STEM-Rising, and you can see what people are doing at all of our labs and all across the complex. Lots of STEM resources there. Next slide. Okay, so I see some questions in the chat. I think I've answered them. If you have any other questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. It has been just a privilege to be with you all today. I hope if there are some questions afterwards, And so if you might be interested in doing professional development, more of these where we're kind of doing activities on screen with you and talking more about the Navigating Nuclear and other curriculum, we would be happy to do that. And so I really want to thank Jay and Rita for being on with me today and working with me in this STEM space with the Office of Nuclear Energy. I also want to thank so much Patrick. You've been amazing on today, and Mike and Rolana from our office for also helping with the work of this. So I appreciate everyone's help. I'm so thankful that you're here. And again, thank you so very much for staying on through the technical difficulties. You all are amazing, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks.